Congressman LaTourette, thanks for joining us this week.
Sure.
So, as we're heading into the Christmas holidays here, we actually have some good news from Washington, D.C. It's like Christmas came early. The budget deal was not only struck, not only passed by the House, but also passed in the Senate, signed by the President. Talk to us about it.
Well, it is, as I think as we talked about last week, a pretty big deal here in Washington that they actually agreed on something dealing with the budget. It's the first time since 1986 when you've had the two parties, not one party in control of everything, that they've reached this kind of deal. Now, having said that, it's small ball. It's like a ping pong ball. It's only $85 billion over 2 years. But it does, if people want to grab it, that template, and say, oh, maybe this is a path forward for some other issues like immigration reform and so forth and so on. It's not a bad day at the office. I think the key is going to be the House has gone home. The Senate is, although Senator Reid is threatening to keep them here until Christmas, I don't think that's going to happen, so that the Senate will be out before Christmas. And it really is going to depend on what happens when they go back home. What do they hear? Does their base think that this is good that they work together, or will the partisans come out and say this was a bad deal? And then, you know, then that'll determine what happens in an election year, where typically not much happens in an election year because nobody wants to give up on an issue that they can use. So, for instance, the Republicans are going to be all about the Affordable Care Act. The Democrats are going to be all about, you know, the war on women and all the other stuff that they like to talk about. And so, but it's a good day. I don't want to downplay the fact that this is a big deal, that they finally reached an agreement.
Well, and now we're returning to something called regular order in appropriations, and you served on the Appropriations Committee.
Right.
Like, what does this mean now? I mean, does this help? There's so much of talk about how dysfunctional Washington's gotten, and you know, we have been kind of kicking the can down the street on everything and not able to deal with it, and nothing going on in regular order. What does it mean now to finally have a budget where appropriators can start working under those numbers?
Well, the very wonky version is that when you have a budget resolution that's agreed to, the Appropriations Committee gets what's called a 302A number, which sets the spending. And the spending in this deal is a little bit lower than the Senate had in their budget, and it's a little bit higher than the House had. And so each one of the subcommittees, so for instance, the Defense Subcommittee will get a number to write a bill to. The sequester is turned off by and large, which is, you know, for those who thought that across-the-board sequester cuts were stupid, especially when they so deeply cut into the defense budget. That's gone, and they will write to the numbers. But I think what I was suggesting is this a kumbaya moment? The proof will be once the House appropriators and the Senate appropriators, let's say, write a defense bill. Can they marry the two versions? And there's reason to believe that they can in a conference because their number has to be the same.
Right.
I mean, the number is now agreed to. The question is going to be whether or not John Boehner in the House can rally his troops to support a vote on anything that spends money, and likewise can Harry Reid rally his troops in the Senate to vote for a bill that's going to be less than the Senate originally wanted.
Do you think this is good for the process in general? Having been a former appropriator, do you think it's good in general that we're going back to regular order?
Yeah, a regular order, and just what regular order means is that you have a spending bill that is presented to the committee. If people have amendments, you mark it up, and everybody has their say. You then take it to the floor, you have amendments, and you have a vote. That really prevents a lot of mischief from occurring, because what has happened when you haven't had budgets, you have things called omnibus spending bills, and in omnibus spending bills, because, you know, the clock is ticking and it's got to get out or else the government shut down, that's when you begin to see senators in particular, but House members too, begin to hang ornaments and different things, and they call them Christmas trees, where you get some really bad legislation. So regular order is designed to produce legislation in the way that we're supposed to produce legislation, and that's never a bad thing.
Look at this. Good things happening in D.C.
It's Christmas.
It's got to be Christmas. So as we turn away from Christmas and head to the New Year's, what can we expect out of Congress the beginning of next year?
Well, we're going to be looking here at McDonald Hopkins at a couple of things. One is, do these appropriations bills actually get written, and do they pass their respective houses and get signed into law by the president? That's one. Two, although they have averted another government shutdown, you still have on February 7th the debt limit needs to be raised. And you hear some of the same voices that led to the government shutdown sort of rattling their sabers again on the Republican side. I mean, the president's view is, I'm not negotiating, you got to raise the debt limit. The Senator Cruz's of the world and others are saying, oh no, we need to extract big concessions from the president before we raise the debt limit. That could set the stage for another round of brinksmanship and so forth and so on. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. The other thing that's happened off campus that has the potential to change the dynamic down at the White House, the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, is sort of seen as an institutional go along, get along kind of guy. Some of the Democrats have complained that the president isn't being hard-nosed enough on some of these stuff. So they're bringing back an old favorite, John Podesta, who worked in the Clinton White House. And John Podesta's nickname down at the White House was Skippy Podesta, because he would fly off the handle a lot, and he is known as a very tough partisan guy. As a matter of fact, he's just walked back a quote that he had this week, but he compared the Republicans in Congress to Jim Jones down at Jonestown, and basically a cult that shot, and killed a member of Congress and others. And so he walked that back today, saying maybe that was a bad choice of words. But that's the kind of guy that's going to be directing the message down at the White House, and that's not going to be sort of a warm and fuzzy feeling. So to be continued.
Well, and as we move from 2013 to 2014, midterm elections, obviously things get much more political, even more political than they normally are here.
Yep.
What are the odds of being able to tackle any of these really big issues in an election year, especially when you talk about the president, who many in Congress would say has already been, a bulldog with Congress, bringing in somebody to make him more of a bulldog with Congress?
Yeah. The issue is, basically the rule of thumb is, if it doesn't get done by Memorial Day, it's not getting done. Because then you go into the summer election cycle. Both parties are going to be looking to clarify and crystallize those issues where they think they can beat up the other party. And so we'll know by Memorial Day, and we may know by Easter whether or not there's a chance to get something done. My bet is no. I think both sides will hunker down until after the midterm elections, and it will really be the last 2 years of President Obama's second term when things are accomplished, if they can be accomplished. But to be determined.
I guess we will have to see next year.
We will.
So, and I guess this is going to be, we'll be off next week for Christmas, for the holidays?
Yeah, with both the House and the Senate gone, and basically Washington leaves Washington between Christmas and New Year's, so we won't be producing this next week. But we do want to wish everybody that watches us happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, and we'll be back to predict and look at our crystal ball in 2014.
Sounds great. We'll see you next year.
Thank you.